All right, this episode of a Hero's Journey podcast is brought to you by SMP Inc. right here in Las Vegas. You can find them all over the country. They've been opening up everywhere, and they are rebuilding people's confidence. JPS Computers, Alex and Jesse, if you have computer needs, if you have to reach a much larger audience, those are the guys that you want to reach out to. They've helped me. We've grown this thing in the last year a lot since I've actually met them. So thank you, JPS Computers. And then to the Rock Rage Radio listeners out there, there's 20 million listeners a month. Every Monday night at 6 o'clock Western, 9 o'clock Eastern, Hero's Journey podcast is blasting out to everyone. As they say, we are everywhere. My name is Brian Hopkins. This is a Hero's Journey podcast. And you run across people in your life that have an impact on you. And I have a couple of really big moments that stuck with me. And this next person is a good friend of mine. He's from Australia, so we are on different time zones. He's not in the room with me today, but he's gracing us right now. I think it's like 11 a.m. in Australia, Melbourne area. I think that's where he's from. He'll correct me here in a second. But we've been friends for a very long time. And I coming up through the music industry together, and then now I've been watching him on social media having an impact on people's lives. And that's what I hope to do here on a Hero's Journey podcast, is remind each and every one of you that you wake up the hero of your own story. You're the star of your own movie, and what you choose to do with it today, if you get the gift to keep breathing, what are you going to do with it? And this next guest of mine on the 49th episode, this is the 49th episode. I was telling George, who's filling in for Chase today, he's a teacher. I said, dude, we're 49 episodes into this. I can't believe it. It's almost a year since I launched this. And
surreal, Brian. I honestly, when you said it, I told our guests, I was like, I got giddy. I got giddy inside because, I mean, it flew by like that, so I can only imagine what the next evolution of this holds, man. So
I'm
you. Excited.
You guys, I've learned a lot from you guys as well. And this next guy, he's out there inspiring people. And I mean that. If you follow him on social media, his name is Tommy Kende. And there he is. There's my boy. Yeah. How you doing, buddy?
Good, Brian. Good to be on the show, mate. Very honored to be on the show with you, and it's so good to see a good-looking face again.
I love you. See, that's why. If I'm having a rough day, you just got to reach out to Tommy. What's up, buddy? So what have you been up to? Because I watch you on social media. Like, you are inspiring people daily.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, man. I mean, look, at the end of the day, we knew each other very well, and we hung out a lot when I was living in LA and living in Hollywood and stuff. And since then, man, I'll tell you what, when I got home I came back home to Melbourne after, I decided to end my journey in LA, and I literally got back home and I had nothing. Like, all my mates were like buying houses, having families, they're married and whatever. And I just got home from LA and I literally felt like I had to restart everything, which I did. And ultimately I fell in a heap, which I think most people do when they restart. But then I just started going, you know what? How can I rebuild myself, but at the same point, enjoy the journey? And so as I was sort of looking around at everyone else in the world, everyone else around me, one thing that I really had to do was take responsibility for what I created, because ultimately I was the one that went to LA. I was the one that followed the dream to be, in bands and music and whatever. So ultimately, if I got myself into this situation where I had nothing and, the only person that was going to help me was me. So I just went, okay, well, we're going to have to do this whether we like it or not. And I decided to do it. And it's been an unbelievable journey, man. And then that's how I started sort of inspiring others, simply in a way where I'm just talking to myself. So I'm calling myself on my own bullshit. And that seems to relate with other people. So really, when you see anything on social media that I post up, I'm really just calling myself on my own BS, and then that's that seems to relate to a
But
lot of other people.
it's true though. You know, because I'm going to take this back. You and I was in a band called Paperback Hero. You were in a band called Juke Kartel, and you guys came in from Australia. Your bandmates, you know, I'm friends with everyone. I'm good friends still to this day with all your bandmates, and you guys got a chance to do some amazing things. You got to play in arenas around the country, and you've got to go back to your you know, your home, and TV and radio and all these things. They live in a dream, and then to stop and go, I'm gonna adjust. I got to do something different. That was a choice you made. It's a hard choice too. That's a tough thing to do, to give up on that and pivot to do something else. So I admire that in you.
Thanks, brother. Well, to be honest, it was pretty much forced, to be honest.
Really?
Because what I mean, living in LA was, especially for a foreigner from someone from Australia who wasn't brought up there, or didn't have the right visas and all that type of stuff. It was actually quite challenging to make ends meet. And I remember, you know, we were at where we were like, I don't know, like, I don't know, one of the supermarkets, and I remember I bought like $80 worth of food, and we went to the counter, and I literally didn't have $80 in my bank, so I had to take some stuff back. And I'm like, man, is this what life is going to be like here? You know, and
Mhm.
so it was almost forced. It was, I got to this fork in the road, and I just had to be honest with myself. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go home and rebuild and restart. That's the only real option I saw for myself at that point in time, and I'm very glad that I did that.
So what was the first thing that you did then? What, because I know what you do. So explain to the listeners out there, like, what you
What up?
did,
So
you
yeah,
talked to yourself,
yes.
but then what did you do?
Well, look, I mean, yoga was, I started practicing yoga when I was still living in LA. And some people might know there's this guy called Guru Singh that is in LA, and he was my first yoga class. Anyway, from that moment on, he really showed me that there's this whole other world out there other than your thoughts and your emotions. And I was like, wow, so I can breathe, move the body, and wow, if I breathe move the body, then that impacts my outer world. And it just blew my mind to the point where I was walking up the Runyon Canyon one day with one of my mates, and I had this massive realization that it's my responsibility to create the life that I want to create. And if so, there's people around me in my life that I don't like, or that are pushing me, that's my responsibility. Like, if there's people in my life that are not right for me, I'm the one that chose to bring them in. And when I was walking up the Runyon, it was such a huge moment that I literally had to curl up in a fetal ball halfway up the Runyon, and I was bawling my eyes out. I had goosebumps the size of bloody Mount Everest all over me, because I realized that all the things that I didn't like in my life were all on me, and I couldn't blame anyone else. That was
Wow.
like, it was that moment where I was
Yeah.
like, oh, there's no one else to blame. Like, I'm the only one here, you know? And so from then, now, I mean, what I do now is ultimately, I've got like a bunch of skills in my toolkit that I've learned over the last 10 to 12 years, including yoga, breath work. Like, I'm obsessed with how the mind works, obsessed with it. And not just obsessed with how my mind works, but how thoughts and emotions and what's underneath that. And then if you go underneath that, how do you access that bit and then make it go out into the outer world and create all this cool shit in the outer world. And so that's what I do now. I basically, yep, you're going to say something?
No, that's wow. I'm like, wow. Sorry, I'm just listening. This is so cool. you know?
Yeah, so it's ultimately now what I do is I go into corporates because there's a lot of messed up people in the corporate field. And I'm not talking messed up. I'm saying that there's a lot of people that are just going down a road that they don't want to go down,
Right.
and they're just becoming more and more unhappy. So I take this work into the corporate space, and that's where I'm really making some really big impacts at the moment, where people are coming to realize in their 40s and their 50s that they actually do get a choice on what they do in their life. They do get a choice in the people that they have in their life, and they do get a choice in stepping into ultimately the greatest version of themselves. So I do that in corporate. I also do, one-on-one coaching. And I still, I've got obviously my yoga practice, which is very strong in yoga and mindfulness and meditation practice, which I use myself, but I also teach it as well.
That's
And that's my life at the
incredible.
moment. Love
Talk about making an adjustment. Wow.
it.
You went from, freaking out about what you're going to do in your life to helping other people find that space. And beyond that, George, like, wasn't that just like,
Yeah, no,
like
that's
mind blowing?
no. He's speaking my language.
Yeah.
There's a lot of when it comes to breath work and meditation, over time, and I'm talking at least a month and a half, 2 months of practice, I noticed the time in my life slow down.
Really?
Like for the first time in my entire life, I literally felt time and everything around me just moved slower. So that was one of the things I was going to ask him.
Yeah,
Is
please.
like, do you feel that? And is that a good way to explain what a lot of meditation and breath work can help you do?
Look, ultimately, you're right. I mean, time doesn't actually slow down, but it feels like it does. And the reason for that is that when you, even just now, if the listeners are listening or whatever, even if you bring awareness to your breath and how you're breathing, and you're not trying to move the breath, but you're just noticing, is my breath shallow? Is it deep? Is it cold? Is it warm? As soon as you become aware of your breath, there's this, the time does slow down in a sense, because you realize that in this breath, there is no past. In this breath, there is no future. And so all we ever have in this breath is this moment. And ultimately, the only truth that ever exists is in this breath and in this moment. But as we all know, me included, we spend so much time either fearing the future, or being guilty, or holding on to shit from the past. And both of them are totally irrelevant. And we're missing the magic of what we can actually create in this moment. And then when we dive into each moment, each breath, then we also realize there's this magical thing that comes out of it, where you start to understand that the way that you perceive the world is totally up to you. Even if you're thinking that shit's going real bad, you don't know if that's actually going to happen because it hasn't happened yet.
Right.
So
Right.
it's just, so it's like ultimately what we're all trying to do is squeeze ourselves into this breath, into this moment. And as soon as you're there, there's nowhere else to be. And this is
Wow.
not me being like spiritual,
I
or
know.
being like, guru, or because I'm not. I'm just as messed up as the next person. But I know that I always have these little kits, these little tools to go, oh, wow, I'm like, I can just come back to the breath. That's all I have to do. Just, wow, I'm breathing. Oh, fuck, how good's that? And then I'm here.
So you're saying to the listeners out there right now, like the very first thing to do in that moment is just catch yourself, stop, and start with your breath. Start noticing, start being present and in the moment, kind of thing. I, that's incredible. We all need to be. No, it's simple, but it's the
It
things
is,
that
isn't
we
it?
need to be aware of. And you did that. You had that moment yourself in a grocery store, and I was around you. I have a guitar that you guys gifted to me.
That's
And
right.
yeah, you gifted this guitar to me because you guys stayed with me when you were living there until you got on your feet and got your own place. For it was about like 7 weeks. And when you got into your place, you gave me this guitar and you signed the cardboard. I wanted to keep the cardboard, but you're like, we didn't want to sign the guitar. This is for you. And I have that thing and I love it. And it was a gift from you guys. And there was a conversation you and I had one day, because I started a podcast to help, like I said, just connect with people and try and inspire them in the littlest ways, and bring on guests like yourself that maybe there's someone out there needs to hear this conversation right now. They're hearing it because there's days that I see you on social media that you speak to me and I'm like, he's right. But little did I know you're talking to yourself in the rearview mirror of your car, going, hey, but I've written songs like that where I'm talking to someone, giving them advice on the phone, and then see myself in the rearview mirror going, I needed to hear that just as much as I was sharing that with that person. So, you've done that. But there was a conversation you and I had after about 5 weeks of you guys staying with me. And it kind of threw me back because you said to me, hey, Brian, not trying to pry, but have you been to Tony Robbins? Like, you asked me if I had been to a Tony Robbins, a seminar. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I had no clue. And you're like, huh? Like, I thought for sure you had, and that's the way you live your life. And I went, no, like, I just try and put it on me to every day take advantage of the day that I've been given and try and be good to people and move forward. Like the things that I eliminate by not drinking, doing drugs, those kinds of things have never been an issue in my life. So that's one less thing that I have to overcome just to have the things that I want to achieve. And
Brian, you've always had this gift of being like, you emanate so much positive energy. You've always had that. And so because you've naturally got that, and you're kind of annoying because you just naturally have that. It's like you naturally have that gift of just being such a great guy, but it's not fake, it's like a genuine,
Thank you.
beautiful, it's a gift. And ultimately, that's something that a lot of people work hard to just get to that space where you're like open and you've always been so giving and so generous. Like I remember you'd literally give the shirt off your back to make sure us 5 Aussies were, okay, and making sure that we got to stay. And you were one of our people that, kept us there in those moments where we didn't know how we were going to survive there, and so that was a real, it was a beautiful thing that you gave to us in terms of just opening your house, opening your life, opening your mates. And yeah, it was unbelievable. And you know what? And even
you get
on
me
that,
choked
man,
up,
like,
man.
yeah, it's beautiful. Well, it is. It's
Thanks.
one of those things that you didn't try. You just were like, yeah, man, come on, let's go. Let's come in, whatever you need. 5 dirty Aussie boys, come and live at my house. Yeah. But ultimately the funny thing with that, man, is even just as you're talking, one of the things that I realized is that, there's a lot of humanity at the moment is that people are realizing that they're kind of messed up, and I realized I was messed up as well in certain moments. But the cool part is that we're all messed up. It doesn't matter who you look at, how nice they are, how angry they are. It doesn't actually matter. We are all messed up beyond messed upness, right? But the biggest problem, the biggest challenge that we all have is most of us actually spend way too much time trying to fix ourselves to not be messed up. And so I am still totally messed up. But what I've sort of realized in my own journey, I guess my own hero's journey, is that I accept that I'm not perfect and I accept that I'm messed up in some ways. And I'm just going to take that messed upness with me. And instead of trying to fix it, I just want to put my focus on the things that I actually want to experience. I'm going to put my focus on the things that bring me happiness, that bring me joy, that bring me love, that bring me, intimacy, all those things. I want to focus on those things. And I just take my messed upness with me, because the more time you spend on trying to fix that you've got anxiety or that you've got depression. And I'm not saying that those things aren't real and those things aren't there, but I think a lot of people use depression and anxiety and bad marriages and shitty jobs and whatever as an excuse to stay stuck. And that might be quite confronting for some people to hear. But because I've been there, I understand and I know that as soon as you just let those things be, and leave them there, leave them as messed up. Don't try and fix them, and just bring your attention onto something that's actually going to bring you joy, happiness, whatever it is, anything that's going to raise your vibration. And as soon as you raise your vibration even a little bit, your whole experience of life is going to change.
Wow. Wow. Oh, I'm having a little seminar with my buddy. Had no clue. This is dude. It's I wish you were right here and I could give you a hug. You know,
Yeah, man.
I miss you, man. This is so great. George, I hope you're learning stuff, man.
Yeah, he's like I taught special ed emotional disturbed kids for 3 years. So this is the only way to kind of make sense of their lives, so they didn't end up, going
Wow.
crazy on people. So like the tools and the realization and it's self skills that need to be taught a lot more in schools. That's for sure.
Wow.
100%.
I didn't know you did that. That's
Well,
incredible.
I'm like an onion.
Yeah, dude, just peeling away all these
Feel
things.
it open.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
great. That's
I
great.
mean, last week I taught a yoga class with it was probably 150 people in there
Jeez.
last week, and up the front there was 2 rows of special needs people, and man, they loved it. They were laughing, they were carrying on. They're like, laughing
Yeah.
at all the little things, and they loved it, man. And they walked out like. But most of them came up to me after class and they were like, "Oh, thank you so much. That was so good. We're gonna go home and do some downward dogs and da 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 da." And it would just
Ah,
change the whole vibration. They were like, "Oh my God, we breathed and we did da da da," and they were so excited. It was
That's
so
awesome.
cool.
that's
Yeah,
really
I was
cool.
getting that.
You know, it dawned on me. It doesn't surprise me that you're doing something like this, because that's what music is. Music is, all the struggle, all the everything that you go through, barely making anything at times, just to take the stage for a half an hour to 2 hours and change the vibration in a room. And that's what you've done. And you found a way to continue to do that. And not just, well, I guess it's not just yourself, because when I'm on stage, that connection with the crowd, that's the changing in the room. And it changes per band or whatever. I just got off the phone with the owner of a club thanking me for a night. We played the LA Mint, if you remember that place in LA. We just played there, and the owner called me and made me late to this because he wanted to thank me for this really just overall cool vibe of an entire night. And I loved that he felt that, and that we connected. I was telling George off camera when we were coming in that he asked us back because he wanted that feeling again. And I was so happy that it resonated with him like that, because that means he's the owner. If it resonated with him like that, then it resonated with most everybody in the room the same way. And it was just this loving we're having fun, sharing my stories, our stories with them, and you're getting to do this. And I only see you on social media because this is Tommy. Everybody, he's a good friend of mine, Tommy Kende. He's in Melbourne, Australia right now, so it's 11:30 in the morning his time and 6:30 here in Las Vegas, and we're talking about this transition that he has made in his life and the transition of going from a musician to now basically like, what's the title? Is it like a motivational,
Yeah,
do you
I
have a
mean,
title
sort
or
of.
is it?
Yeah, I mean, titles are so
Yeah.
weird, man. I
Yeah.
mean, I call myself a greatness coach, which I find so tacky, but it doesn't matter what you call yourself, like motivation coach, greatness coach, like whatever. Like it doesn't matter. I mean, ultimately, I'm doing exactly what you're doing. You're doing it through music, and now I'm doing it through these sort of tools of yoga, breath work, and mindfulness stuff. But ultimately, it's exactly the same thing. We're all here to raise the vibration of humanity. And God knows we definitely need that at the moment because there's a lot of people that are struggling, a lot of communities that are struggling. So it's like if we can even, and that's the thing, man, like as you know, as we all know, that as you start raising your own vibration, then you're helping the whole planet
Right.
vibrate at a different energy. So there's quite a bit of responsibility on all of us, I reckon, and it's not. It's like when you bring the onus back onto yourself, then fuck, man, does that make a huge difference? Because I mean, if you say to yourself, "My job is to shift the the vibration or lift the energy of the whole world into a higher realm or whatever," that's a huge task. But if you bring it onto yourself and just go, you know what, I just want to experience joy, happiness, laughter, good times, success, all that type of stuff. That's all I want to experience, or they're the things I want to experience more so than not. Then you're raising your own vibration, and the gift of that is that you're helping raise other people's vibration because people that come into your era or your space, they're ultimately going to be raised up with you. So that's ultimately what it comes down to. There's this thing that I love, which is being of service to the self, which is you, and then being of service to others, and then being of service to the world. And it's always being of service to the self first. That usually is the hardest one, but the most effective one.
It's crazy that you say that and the way that you say that. My son, he gets caught up in worrying about the planet as a whole. And he's got a degree in environmental science from University of Oregon, and it's one of those things where it kind of throws me because I have to talk to him and say, Josh, you can't worry about the planet as a whole. Start in your own backyard. Start here. Start with yourself and start. You want your own garden and those kind. Start there. Start your own garden. Start and then expand, and then you can teach the people around you that you can touch and speak to do those same things, and you can share your knowledge that you've learned with them. So then it can spread kind of and have to back it off because he gets so caught up in worrying about everything as a whole. And I don't know how to help him other than do that, like give him the tools of, starting in your own backyard, starting with yourself, start with you, and then lead by example kind of thing. So it's crazy that you say that and that it just pointed out that maybe I'm doing the right thing. maybe
Totally, man.
as a dad, I gave him, the right advice. That's
You definitely did.
yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
and you know what? When usually the truth always has a ring to it. We all know when someone says something that's true, or that moment when you're on stage and you know that you've got that connection with the crowd.
Oh yeah.
Man, like that has a ring to it. It has a feeling to it. When when you speak truth or you sing truth or you experience truth,
Yeah.
like you feel it in your bones that it's true. You know that. When your partner comes up to you and and hugs you and buries their head in your neck and just says, "Babe, fuck, I love you." It feels, when it's true and you know
Wow.
when it's fake.
So
You feel it, you know.
that's straight on. Yeah. That's wow. Wow. For
Mm,
real.
mm.
That's really great. So what have you like outside of this? What do you do? What does Tommy do for fun?
Man, I'm still like I'm still it's exactly I do exactly the same thing. So I haven't gone into like full guru mode. And funny enough, right? Like this world and people that practice yoga or are into mindfulness or whatever, they'll probably relate. But this world of spirituality is pretty much exactly the same as being in a band. It's like there's people that it's like, hey man, you're you're not spiritual enough because you don't. It's like there's so much of that around. It's crazy, man. It's like actually worse than being in a band. And at the same point, you get your little fans that
Yeah.
come to you, little things. It's like, oh,
Wow.
go to Tommy's class. Oh my God. So it's a very similar thing, man. It's a very similar experience, and I just have a lot of fun with it. I really enjoy it. But I mean, in terms of fun, I'm still like, I mean, I'm a totally normal guy. Like I've definitely haven't gone off into the clouds. Like I'm still very balanced. I still, have a drink here and there. Like I still see all my mates, and we still have good times and whatever else. So just I live a totally normal life, and for fun, I mean, I've got myself a motorbike. I know you ride as well. And last sort of 10 years, I've been really love my motorbike. And I've even done a few sort of track days
Oh,
where take
that's
the bike out and
awesome.
smash it out on the racetrack. And yeah, so I've done a little bit of that, and that's been so much fun. And man, there's a raceway down here called Phillip Island, and we were just there, and man, I was in my helmet doing like 260, not miles, 260
Okay. I was
kilometers
gonna
down,
say,
not
damn.
miles, kilometers, but 260 in my little helmet going down, going, wow, holy shit, I just shit myself going down the straight. And then you come up to the turn and just like I like chasing those moments where you're always like on the edge,
Yeah.
like you're just on the edge,
Yeah.
and you can create that in so many ways. You don't have to be a rock star. You don't have to be, into what I do. You don't have to be a car racer or a motor. You can create those things in everyday life. You can just by speaking your truth. You're going to create plenty of those moments around you. So I mean, but for fun, what do I do? Yeah, do those things. I've got my, I live in Bayside, Melbourne. So, lead quite a healthy lifestyle. So I like walking, running, doing yoga, stuff like that. But I reckon when you get to our age, man, like I'm turning 47 in a couple of weeks. And I mean, like at home, I've got my wifey, we just hang out, love each other, do some fun stuff, go away. But I mean, my life's quite just normal.
Yeah, but
Normal.
you say normal, but you're inspiring and you're touching people and actually not physically touching, but you're touching people in a way. And I mean,
Yeah.
you've reached out through social media to me, and that's what made me. I saw you. I saw you today and was like, hey, will you do the show? Because I follow you, and it's like I said, there are times it seems like you're talking to me on the day that I need to hear it. And
Mm.
that's what I love. And I love that it's a friend, you're a friend of mine. And, you may be halfway around the world, but you
Dude, I
always live
feel like I
here.
saw you yesterday.
Yeah, I was gonna
Like
say,
literally.
yeah. And that's what's great. It's I have all of these really cool moments of just sitting back and watching. And like I said, I have my buddy Tommy Kende. He's in Australia, but you're a phenomenal musician. Like, if you lived here, I would be putting you to work playing bass for me, and then we'd be having yoga classes on the side and keeping the band all in the same space. But
I still play the battle axe. I still do gigs.
Okay.
The music's still definitely part of my life. It's
Yeah.
I've got like a dirty ass rock blues band here, and it's really cool. We're called Interesting Cowboys. And it's a really cool little band, and we've got some shows coming up, doing some festivals and stuff. So once a month, once or twice a month, we still play, and they're also doing some recordings with Dale in a month or so. We're gonna get the blues explosion back and rocking. I know.
Dale, I would be putting both of you guys to work if you guys lived here. I would be. Yeah, Dale is amazing as well. Dale is a phenomenal guitar player, songwriter, singer. All you guys could sing. That's what was so great. The 3-part harmonies just like blew me away. And Toby is just on the next level as a singer.
It, you're all killing it.
Yeah.
It's so good to see, and even what you're doing with the podcast. Like when I first saw this pop up, and it's called The Hero's Journey, I'm like, oh, that is so good. And it's gonna pump, man. Like, yeah, I mean, I'm sure it is already, but you can't have you at the helm and a podcast called The Hero's Journey and have it not work. Like, this will.
Thank you.
It'll be unbelievable, man. And I mean, and even what you're doing, it's just you think about it. You probably had this moment where you went, man, I should start a podcast. And you probably had this moment also where you went, nah, too hard. How am I going to do it? Why
Nailed
would
it.
guests talk to me? Da, 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 da. And then you just went, you know what? Whatever. Let's just go for it. And look at you now. You're getting the likes of Tommy Kende on your
Hey, exactly. Well, and I got George, the teacher, running the helm today. But you know what's great is you nailed it, dude. So I was working with these guys, and going back to Australia, you guys were locked down more than anyone for even longer than anything, and so you had to find a way to stay centered and stay mindful, and the hair standing up on my arms, dude. Just like knowing that you took that negative and turned it into something positive and came out of it a better person. And if anyone's going to do it, it's you. But to have that and to these guys called Dadcast out of Oregon, small town, and they wanted my help. And so I would help them just out of the goodness of my heart. And yeah, sure, let me help you get some guests or whatever. And that turned into them saying, hey, called me up one day, would you consider managing us or whatever? I'm like, I'm not a manager, but what do you need? And they threw some stuff at me. And like 20 minutes later, I'm not even joking and I'm not exaggerating, 20 minutes later, I had them an agent. I had them the things that they needed. And the agent said, I'll jump on board if Brian works with you. So I've been working with these guys and their following is just blown up. And they've been pushing me and pushing me and pushing me to have my own show. And I knew what I wanted to do, but it had to be on a really high level. And one day I'm at the gym and I walk up to this guy who I know his girlfriend. And it's a guy named John Orlando. And I was like, hey, I could get you a couple of guests if, you're interested. And he was like all over it. He jumped all over it, said yes. And it was Randy Couture and Brian Lindsay. And I helped him get some guests. And I come in and I watch him do the podcast. And I'm like, wow, this is incredible. And he taps me on the shoulder at the same gym, same area. And he said, hey, I kind of went down the rabbit hole of you. And you should have your own podcast. And I was guest hosting with the guys from Dadcast on many of them. And he said, you should have your own. I'm like, yeah, one day I will, I'm thinking about it. But as you said, oh, it's too hard, or it's going to take a lot of work, and I have to have it on this level, and all these things that made me kind of push it to the next day. He said, that place that you came by, that's mine. I own that place. And I'm saying you can do your podcast from there. And you could do it as early as Monday. And this is a Thursday. And I went, what? And he goes, yeah, well, do you have any ideas what it would be? I'm like, yeah, it would be a Hero's Journey podcast. And he goes, whoa, that's incredible. And he goes, what's the concept? And I told him exactly what I said at the beginning of the show. We wake up the hero of our own story every day. We're the star of our own movie. And he's like, you could start Monday. Just give me a call. I called him that night. I had a logo and I had a band on tour through Las Vegas. And they had 13 people in the next room watching on the TV screen. There's a viewing room in the next room. And I got started. And I haven't stopped. And this is episode 49 now. And dude, I'm telling you, like it changed the energy with me. This fueled other things. The work that I put into my band, the work that I put into myself, the making sure that I don't skip the gym, making sure that I do the things that are positive for myself, started with an opportunity, and the opportunity that I stepped through. I just had to, in a hero's journey, it's kind of like that adventure in this area of stepping over that line and going into the unknown, and being surrounded by guys like George, who's running the helm today, and Chase, the producer, and Travis and Austin, who are much younger than myself, but they have a handle on what's going on in this world. So I soak that in. If they've got advice for me, I want to hear it. If they are throwing something at me, I'll try it. Whatever it is. And it's been this, as you said, vibration that has just made me feel better and happier, and makes one feeds into the next and into the, it just is this little path that I'm on, and I'm just going and flowing with it. And like today, no offense to you, because I've asked you to be on the show, like a couple months ago, and we've been trying, but I had a guest, and the guest had to change at the last minute. And then so I see that it's only 7:30 in the morning your time, and I went, I wonder if Tommy will do the show with me today. And it was like it was meant to be, because you're just so well spoken, and I love what you've done with yourself. I love that you've taken something that could be so negative. You and I have friends that have went down the wrong path with success in what we do with music, and also when they consider it failing, and just by stopping or not getting what they want, and then that path that maybe they're not here with us anymore, kind of thing. And you turned this into an incredible thing. And I could run you in Canyon. I've been on that. I know where you are when you had this moment, so I can picture that. And so this was very moving, man, to have you on today's show. And I just went on a rant, but you touched on something that it spoke to me. What you said today, my example was just as little as having this podcast, and that bled into all my life and the other things.
Yeah, man. And, I'm sure a lot of people will relate to obviously, we all have such creative ideas, and they come in at the weirdest times.
Oh, yeah.
And, it's like, oh, this would be cool. I should do this. And the way I sort of look at it in terms of creativity is that if I get an idea, if I don't do something about it and give it energy, then it will leave me and it'll go into someone else's head, right? And I laugh at that because it's happened. I don't know if this has happened to you, Brian, but I've thought of something and I went, nah, too hard. And literally 3 months later, I see someone else doing exactly the same thing. I'm like, hey, that's mine.
Yeah.
And so now every time I get a creative idea, I'm like, all right, all I need to do is just give it a little bit of energy, which means write it down.
Right.
And then just go, what, like, even if I don't believe it yet, what sort of things can I do with it? And then I do it. And then I go, oh, and then if I get into this energy of flow with it, it keeps going. And then before you, like even that thing last week where I had 150 people in the yoga class, I'm like, when I first thought about doing something like that, I'm like, no way would I get 150 people. Not a chance. And dude, I had 150 people. It was like a dance thing. We're all moving in unison. Everyone's breathing. People are crying, laughing. It was just unbelievable. It was like a concert.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You found a way to you vibrate with people, to actually resonate with them on the same wavelength. And that's what I've always noticed about us is we connected straight away. And like I said, that moment in the car, I remember exactly where we were because we were in the driveway when you asked me these questions, and it stayed with me, and it made me, there are days that I go, am I living up to that day? Am I continuing to move forward? Because I've always said, like, I'm like a turtle. You just pointed me in one direction, and I found a way around it, over it, under it, whatever. But I have a destination, and it's all about the journey. And for me, it really is. It's about, people ask, being successful. I'm like, I am successful. I get to do what I love. And there are all these moments that I'm chasing that I'm enjoying getting there. I'm enjoying the process. Like you said, from songs that I don't know where the next one's coming from, and it speaks to me right through me, and it's whether or not I'm going to do something with that and see it through to that moment where you've sat in a recording studio and recorded the ideas that when you can't gift it to someone, you can't hand it to them, but they can feel it and it vibrates with them and it speaks to them in some way, and which you're continuing to do. We could talk forever, man. Is there anything that you could leave? You've already spoke to us, huh, George?
True.
Oh, yeah.
Like woo!
Well, I mean, look,
It's hard today.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, look, I guess the number one thing that made a huge impact on my life when everything shifted is self-responsibility. It is massive. Once you look out into your life and you see all the things that you're happy with and all the things that you're not happy with, if you realize that you created all of it, then you're taking responsibility for everything. And then that leads on to, once you take responsibility, but then if there's a few things in your life that you're not enjoying and you go, well, hang on, if I created that, can't I just create something else that I'm actually going to enjoy? So self-responsibility is a massive one. Every single thing that you see in your life, good or bad, is all on you. And that's a big one. And once you start taking that, it gives you energy, gives you power, because you become the creator. And you're like, all right, well, if I created that, I can sure as shit create something way better than that. Let's go for it. How am I going to do that? So that's like the biggest thing that made an impact on me, is when I took full out responsibility for my own life.
Amazing. That was I couldn't have said that better or set that up. That's a clip, George. We got to make sure that that's a reel right there. Tommy Kende in Australia, Melbourne, Australia. Dude, thank you for being on the show today. Really,
man, anytime. It was
seriously
such an honor to be on. So good to see you guys, and man, yeah, it's so cool, bro. Like, honestly, it's literally like I saw you yesterday. Like, if I saw you now, I would just hug you, and I'd be the one burying my head in your neck. That's for sure.
I was gonna say, man, I've had that moment with you. Like, yeah. I love you, dude. Thank you so much.
Brother.
Hey, George, before we go, is there anything that you want to add to today's show?
Hey, I know who a majority of the listeners are for this show. So everyone ride safe, baby. Ride safe.
Oh, yeah. So my name is Brian Hopkins, and this is the Hero's Journey podcast. I want to thank SMP Inc., JPS Computers, and my boy, Tommy Kende, everybody. Go follow his social media. Do you have a website or anything like that, Tommy?
Yeah, man. It's just tommykende.com. So yeah, that's my website. But I guess Instagram's probably the best one where I sort of share most of my wisdom,
Yeah.
most of my guru-esque wisdom. So yeah, Instagram is probably the best one. And yeah, my website's there as well, tommykende.com.
I love it, man. I love you, dude. And thank you so much for doing this, stepping in today and being on a Hero's Journey podcast. Thanks for following me too, man. Thanks for, taking notice, and you inspired me today. I love you. This is Brian Hopkins. This is a Hero's Journey podcast. Thank you.
Dream, and I believe it's coming around to me.